how do we interpret dummy variables? As a reminder, a dummy variable is defined as equal 1 if some condition is satisfied, 0 otherwise. A typical dummy variable is for gender, and you can think about female equals 1 if female, 0 if male. And if we were to interpret the dummy variable for female, let's say it's beta 2 hat, we would think about the effect of being female on y relative to being male. So specifically in words, we would say being female increases or decreases depending on the sign of the beta 2 hat, y by beta 2 hat relative to being male on average and keeping everything else constant. We no longer say that as x2 or female increases by 1, then y is affected in a certain way. That makes no sense because female is not increasing by 1. It only goes from 0 to 1. So don't get confused and don't think that female is capturing number of females in the data set. No. Female is capturing whether the respondent or the observation or the household head is male or female. So keep that in mind for the interpretation. Example 2, we can think about our social media dummy variable from the Brazilian dataset. And suppose we have a model where Y is going to be the number of unions, farming organizations, and co-ops the household participates in, and X is going to be the dummy variable for social media usage. We can estimate a simple model where unions is going to be Y and social media is going to be X. So our X is a dummy variable. And when we do the coef test, we find that the coefficient on social media is basically around 0.1. So the interpretation is using social media increases the participation in union, farming organization co-ops by about 0.1 organizations on average, keeping everything else constant relative to not having social media. For the third example, we look at dummy variables for each study region. Because we have multiple levels within the category, this is not the same as just a simple dummy variable. So we can think about this as interpreting categorical variables. To showcase that, we modify mod 4 to exclude south. Remember, anytime you have categories, you need to exclude one of the levels from the regression. And in this case, we're going to exclude south. I added north and center. I do the coef test, and what I find is two coefficients for north and center, and the interpretation of those coefficients is relative to the southern region, not relative to not being in the north or not being in the center, but it's relative to the category you excluded. So the interpretation of the study region dummies must always be relative to the excluded category, and specifically having the lot in the north region increases income from milk by about 2,076 reais relative to a lot in the south region. However, this coefficient is not statistically significant. For center dummy, having the lot in the center region increases income from milk by about 5,430 reais relative to a lot in the south region, and this coefficient is statistically significant. So remember, if you have a simple dummy variable, you're comparing to the other levels, so 1 through to 0. If you have categorical variables, you have to compare to the level of the category that is excluded from the model.